Okay.
We're ready to proceed.
Liz suddenly ended up in the sod.
Look at that. Oh,
Susan,
we
you're
can't
ready
hear
to
you.
proceed.
We can't hear you.
So Max, he's doing the live stream now, right?
Correct. You're ready to proceed.
We're ready?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is Friday, October 9th, and I'm calling the Mayor's Advisory Committee on Trees meeting to order. And the first order of business is a roll call. So as I call everybody's name, please wave so that anybody watching will know who you are. Let's see, Andrea Hoffman.
Here.
Funky Marker.
Here.
Terry Eskew. Dick Byrne, Commissioner Byrne.
Here.
Elise Burns.
Here.
And Katie Downs.
Here.
And let the record show that we have another member, Joan Flaherty, who is not able to be with us today. And I am Commissioner Susan Gay. So, thank you. We have a quorum, and I'm delighted that we can meet. This is the first time that the committee has met since January. There was a failed attempt in February where 4 people showed up, but it wasn't a quorum, so we couldn't meet. In fact, I was one of the ones who wasn't there. I was out of town. So we have not met since January. And there is no correspondence for us today, right?
No correspondence has come in.
Okay, thank you. So then I'm going down the agenda, and the fourth thing on the agenda is announcement of new chair, which will be extremely anticlimactic since you all pretty much know. But the reason that was put there is because it was just approved on this past Monday after the agenda went out. But as most of you know, but the public may not know, is that former Commissioner Tony Sharp decided to step down as chair, and in fact to step off the committee. She's been working with the city for a long time and needed a break, and it's totally understandable. And so the Mayor Mills nominated me to take over as chair, and that was approved at Monday's meeting. So I'm now the chair of the MACT. So thank you all for staying on. I mean, the way it's going to work for committee appointments, I mean, as you know, each committee appointments are all for just 1 year, and we haven't addressed that yet this year. I think there may be some new people that have applied. I'm not sure. I haven't seen all the applications that have come in, but there's a chance that we would get, we might have more people joining because Sturgis Dodge also decided to step off. We had a very large committee. I think one of the largest before. I think we were like 10 people. So we can stick with 8, or we can have more. So I'm delighted if all of you are planning to stay, which is my understanding. And then once we see when the applications come in, we may have others. So that's and the only other update before we start talking about mission, I guess, is again that this is the first time we have met in some months, but it is the previous group. So I think we're ready to get started on moving forward and meeting, and so the meetings would be virtual every month until we're back, and I can't say when that'll be, but the sense I have is that it'll be at least spring before live meetings resume. So we would be doing them on the second Friday, our usual time at 10 a.m. and the one other limitation is that the committee meetings are strictly limited to an hour, and I think that's fine. I mean, the reason for that is the staff time involved in both putting them on and as well as doing the live. So that's why we're limited, but hopefully we can cover a lot in the hour and be productive each month. So without belaboring anymore, I know I put down 2 items for new business. The first one to discuss our mission, and part of the reason for that is some things I've been thinking about over these last months that we haven't been meeting. Our mission, as stated on the city website, is really very brief. In fact, I think it's one of the shortest ones on there, and I think Tony liked that. I mean, she wanted it to be, to be very broad, and it was to protect and preserve the tree and grow the tree canopy of Rehoboth Beach, which I think is still very much our mission. But you know, I never particularly liked the name of the group, and it's left over from 2 former administrations when the group was named Mayor's Advisory. But to me, it first of all, it puts the most important word last, trees. And I think it's a mouthful to say, because we do more than just advise the mayor. I mean, we really act on behalf of the city, and the approval of the mayor and commissioners as to our priorities and our you know, our requests and that kind of thing. So one of the things I was thinking about, along with and the name kind of goes hand in hand with the mission, is 2 things. And I want to open this up for discussion and just tell you briefly what I was thinking about. First of all, Mayor Mills asked me for an update of the accomplishments of the committee over the last year, and we would have discussed that at the workshop Monday, but we ran out of time, so it's on the agenda for next Friday's regular meeting on the 16th. And he asked it of all committees, and so attached to the agenda for that workshop are summaries of what all the committees have done. And I have to say, I think we have had terrific accomplishments. I was really pleased when I put it together and saw, you know, kind of for the first time gathered in one place, just what we had accomplished in so short a time, with the commemorative tree program being one of the major accomplishments, with having the Doug Talamay lecture, which was standing room only, and you know, that doesn't happen very often. And so that was a big success. But one of the other things on the list was Tony had done a presentation to the commissioners in February of 2019, and we all worked at putting that together. In fact, I'll probably send you a link afterwards, because I think everybody should re-review the PowerPoint. It just was so good. But it was on green infrastructure. And obviously green infrastructure is more than just trees, but trees are a big component. And she gave that presentation, and at the end of it, basically asked for a commitment from the mayor and commissioners that every city project would take into account or would involve a plan for green infrastructure involving our committee input. And she got that agreement from them. There were 2 that spoke up. One spoke about the Lake Avenue, the first phase of Lake Avenue, and the bump outs and how those had been done to include trees. The other person spoke out about heat island effect and the need for trees for that. So there was general agreement, but I will say that I don't think anything formal ever happened after that. And part of the reason for that was there weren't any big projects. Well, now we have one, the Lake Avenue Streetscape second phase, and the perfect opportunity to work with Liz and with the city to you know, to make sure that trees and green infrastructure are an important component of that project. And it's just right here in front of us, you know, because the plan isn't part of the initial construction. It's to be done in the spring of 2021, which ties in perfectly to our timing. We're not behind. If anything, we're approaching it at just the right time. So I had wondered in turn, first of all, to really focus on green infrastructure as part of our mission and our goals for the coming year, but to also think in terms of the name of the group. And I talked to Liz about this a little bit the other day, and she mentioned that other tree groups, you know, tree committees in other municipalities often have parks in the name too. So it's, you know, trees, parks, landscape, or it's trees, parks. Sometimes it's parks and recreation, but I think a different connotation a little bit. So I've wondered about whether we should call ourselves you know, trees and green infrastructure, or trees, parks, and green infrastructure, just to really emphasize that, first of all, the infrastructure in a small community like ours is critical for clean ocean water, for climate change, for everything else. It's absolutely one of our most critical components. And because of the loss of trees on private property, we really, you know, we have to focus on city property and what the city does going forward. So I'll just throw that out there for whoever wants to. Let's see, I'm going to exit full screen. I don't see any hands raised, but anybody who wants to start, hold on a minute.
Well, Susan?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's like you're saying, a very worthy discussion to talk about the name, because I have very similar questions and concerns like you have about the current name. But when you say green infrastructure, how do you define that? Because that could be very, very broad, or in terms of the committee, it could be much narrower.
Well, I mean, I don't have a firm definition. I mean, it obviously is broader than just trees. And Liz can help out a little bit here, because I think there is a plan for some green infrastructure aspects with the Lake Avenue project. There had been some with the City Hall landscape, with the not rain gardens, but what did you call it, Liz?
Better, Michael.
It would be like the retention basins, biofiltration basins.
Right, yeah. So it does involve more than trees, but at the same time, you know, trees are an integral component. So, and that's part of the question, is whether we, you know, sort of broaden our mission a little bit, because I think we had talked about, one of the things that came out of the Talony lecture was trees and plants. And you know, Andrew, what were you thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I came away from that lecture really thinking about the thing that he said about Rehoboth being one shared landscape, and what all of us do, public and private, you know, what we choose to do affects everything. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I want to come back, I guess, to that question of us being somehow advocates for native species, for biodiversity, as part of that whole green infrastructure.
Okay. Okay. And Bunky, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just imagining, you know, the role that trees play, at least as far as the CDP is concerned, and the fact that we treat it as a natural resource. Yeah. And the management of that natural resource, or at least attempt at managing the natural resource. So I don't know. I'm more inclined to make things more broad as opposed to more narrow. So I don't know if you want to call it living natural resource. I mean, we can spend the rest of the hour, you know, hashing this out or whatever. But right. Just in terms of you know, the fact that it's a manageable living resource, you know, in the context of that, to be thinking in terms of that, as opposed to have a clear, concise name for it. I'm open to suggestions, but that's the way I want to look at it.
Okay, good. Elise.
I'm very open to expanding the scope of the committee and looking at a name change. And again, we can get in the wordsmithing. I'm agreeing with Andrea about being an advocate for native species. I think we should be that advocate. Trees, along with, you know, other plants, and I would love for us to get, you know, to be an advocate for rain gardens and bioretention ponds and such in the city. And then, you know, we always, as far as our name, we always did get confused with the other committee that has trees in its name.
Right. The
Park Shade and Tree. And so if we could, you know, find something that for us that would stand out and make it obvious about what we're about, I think that would be a good thing. That's why I am concerned about adding parks to our name, just for that reason.
Yes, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it. That's a very good point.
But I like the idea of advocating for our parks and green spaces.
Yeah.
Maybe we can find another name, another way to do that.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Yeah, Terry.
Well, you know, I was just thinking, I think like a lot of us on this committee, you know, I've been on this committee since Mayor Cooper's situation where we were the Mayor's Advisory Committee. And, you know, a couple things occur to me. I don't think we should get hung up on the name so much, but I think that we also have to focus on the fact that at this point in time, with everything going on, number one, I was just making some notes here. Do we have funds available to actually put any of this in effect in terms of working, quote unquote, with the city on green infrastructure? And secondly, I think one of the things that I would really hope for this committee going forward is we really have specific goals and timelines for projects or proposals or whatever we're working on, because, you know, I think the way this is written is great. And I complimented Susan on her ability to really just put all of these ideas together very successfully. But I think we have to really focus on what projects, specific projects we can work on in terms of green infrastructure and trees. And, you know, where are these funds going to come from? Because one thing comes to mind, for example, the Lake Avenue project, hasn't that already been bid out? I thought that Katie or someone was already doing the landscaping for that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, are we really going to have input on that, or has that already been, you know, taken care of?
It's not a done deal by any means. But I actually, I'll let Katie respond to that because I know she knows about it a little bit.
That's why I was wondering from Katie.
Yeah. Go ahead, Katie.
I am currently working on the design. So, I mean, input's great. Right now, there are lots of trees in the plan. So oak trees, others. And then there'll be a number of different native plants also.
So the funding is available? There is funding committed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So next year's budget, right, Liz?
For the landscape itself is 2022. But the actual, what you guys are talking about, the design of the retention basin and everything is going to be, that's all done and that'll be installed this year. So the landscape is what Katie's doing. So all the plants that'll go in the basin and all the plants in front of the breakers, we'll be able to do that work starting April 1.
Okay. So everybody, because one of the things, and Liz and I talked about this the other day, one of the things I wondered if we should do as one of our priorities for the year, you know, when the commemorative tree program started, it was with the understanding that would be a section of town or an area each year would be identified as the priority for where the trees that are purchased by people participating in that program would go. So last year it was Rehoboth Avenue. And so I had thought, well, maybe we should make 2021, the commemorative tree program for the trees in the Lake Avenue Streetscape project and surrounding area. I mean, I don't know if does the plan for it include just the island, or are there's some in front of the breakers, right? Are there some on the other side as well, on the park side?
Well, Liz expanded my area of work to the breakers, yes, but the plan, I mean, the Lake Avenue project does go in front of the breakers, but it as far as changing the grades a little bit, but I think the grades are changed a little bit, but my scope of work is in front of there, so there will be trees and native shrubs in that area.
Okay.
Okay. Question.
So yes.
Always thinking about Arbor Day.
Yes, well,
will this project perhaps be ready for that? This should be our Arbor Day focus, it strikes me then. Will it be ready at that point? Because this is about, I'm not sure when Arbor Day is, but it's
April 30th. I looked that up last night.
Thank you.
April 30th.
I should have done that. But it strikes me that this would be perfect then. Okay.
Yeah, would things be in by then, or would we be able to have the celebration there?
I think that would be very tight, honestly. I think we'd be better doing Arbor Day where we had planned to do it this year, which is really just down the street.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm happy with that too. So, okay.
Okay.
As you know.
Okay.
Susan,
sorry, off the topic.
Did you want me to, I have a definition of green infrastructure from one of my trainings, if you guys want me to read it, if it'll help.
Absolutely. That'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
It's very succinct, but this way you guys will know what you're getting into. Green infrastructure refers to stormwater management practices that protect, restore, or mimic the natural water cycle. Trees and vegetation are often, but not always, used in green infrastructure.
Okay.
Very simple. That's the approved National Green Infrastructure Certification Program's definition. So,
Well, what I like about that is that it says, trees can be part of it. And it seems like for us anyway, this is a chance to kill two birds with one stone, for lack of a better phrase. In other words, trees as green infrastructure and trees as canopy, because that's the look of Rehoboth, kind of go together. So the more we can include trees and green infrastructure, the closer we'll be to increasing the canopy as well. Because again, on private property, it looks like that's not, it's not going to happen as much, and so we have to look at it as public property. And actually, that reminds me of something else that I don't know when we'll actually get the data. It could be some months, but I'm excited about it. I heard an update on the CDP last month by the consultant who's working on that. And it's actually going to be delayed another either 3 or 6 months, partly because they're updating the maps. And there are current maps in the 2010 CDP, but they're static. They're just print maps. Whereas the new ones, because of technology and all the advances in the last decade, are going to be interactive maps that will get you all kind of data. And the examples she gave were that you would know how many acres are in the business district or how many acres of green space. And I got very excited when I heard that we could actually know, we would have that data to know how many acres of green space are in the city. I think it would say a lot. And I also think it will help us further our goals of canopy because I think it's going to be a big number. I think we're going to find we have a lot of green space in the city. And it will help us, I think, to argue that needs protecting and preserving and growing. So I think that'll help as well. Does everybody think that green infrastructure could or should be part of our missions, so that we would be the Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee? I just threw that out there as a possibility.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I certainly like it, and I really appreciate the discussion we've had about how to define it. And I agree with Bunky that it shouldn't be a very narrow kind of a definition to hold us in. But I also like what Liz just read. It's succinct. Yeah. It's something that we can easily explain to others.
Right. Exactly.
And I think that's important. People are going to ask, what does this mean? And we can communicate it in a way that Liz just gave us. I think that'd be helpful.
Yes, I'd love to get that definition, Liz.
Yeah, sure. I can email it to you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Great. Yeah.
I was going to ask this for the definition again.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I meant to make a comment before. I don't know if you guys have been following along with the tree code discussions at all, because it kind of came to a standstill with everything going on. But that probably the word parks will be eliminated from that commission's name. So just food for thought. I wouldn't necessarily write it out of yours if you felt it was important.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. No.
Yeah, it's going to be called the Tree Ordinance Commission. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, something like that, because there was no relation to parks, really. So
yeah, makes a lot of sense.
And actually, speaking of that, the draft ordinance, as Liz just said, it's on hold at the moment. I think we agreed the other day to talk about it at the November workshop, right, Dick? Is that what we said?
Yes.
Start talking about it then. And I think you all received it, right? I think Hoyt wrote to everybody on all the committees. And if you didn't, let me know and I can get it to you. But it would be great. And I know I've already gotten feedback from several of you. And what I'm planning to do is sort of collect all that feedback and really try to absorb it shortly before we talk about it, because otherwise I forget about it and it gets complicated. Yeah. But I'd love to get feedback from everybody. Yes, Andrew.
Could you resend that to me?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I don't know how long it's going to be before we get it going, but I do think that it's important for us to have input into it. And actually, Liz, while we're on that topic, I know that Hoyt did a comparison of the current tree code and the new proposed tree code with respect to cases before parks and shade tree. In fact, it was more comprehensive than I expected it to be. It's quite a good comparison. But as you pointed out to me, most cases don't go to parks and shade tree. They come in as permits and they get allowed. So you had suggested that we ought to do some modeling with just permits against the old current and the new code. Is that something you can do? Just a few? I think all we need is 3 or 4 cases, 3 or 4 examples.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why that would be a problem. I mean, there may be question marks when I do them, things that aren't clear in the proposed code, but
for more reason. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be an issue.
Right. Okay. I mean, I think you had talked about, I'm sort of going by memory here, but it seems like you were talking about doing some that represented the kinds of permit requests you get. So one would be new construction, and one would be, I don't know, disease trees, whatever.
Yeah, because like you said, so few of the permits end up at Park and Shade that it's not really representative of the everyday, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that'd be great to have. Yeah. Yeah, Katie.
Is there anything in the new code, and I have not read it fully, is there anything in the proposed new code that has, that I guess basically makes a person, or the person on a new property who's gonna tear down a house, is there anything that is something written into the code that they need to try to site the house so they don't have to rip down a bunch of trees, so they have to rework the
Design.
layout, or they can flip the house or do something like that would.
Does the city have the ability to require that?
Yes.
Liz, do you know?
In the new code.
Off the top of my head, I'm going to say the new code is not as strong on that as the existing, because in the existing, we do have a line that I use all the time that says no tree permit shall be issued or tree pan approved if they have failed to cite the improvements consistent with minimizing tree removal. And then it goes on to say, like, that includes alteration of design, utilities, citing the house, stuff like that. So that gives us the ability to request people, like a common one is a walkway to the front door that goes straight through the middle of, say, a 30-inch oak tree that's healthy. So I would go to the contractor in writing and say, we request that you curve that walkway around the tree in order to maintain it.
Okay.
So you do that now?
Yes.
Okay.
And this code does not, it is more lenient.
It just, I don't, and I could be wrong because I don't have it memorized, but I don't believe it really mentions that at all. But I could be wrong.
Okay.
Like I said,
that's an important point. I think that should be maintained.
I think
if
so
not,
too.
honestly, if not strengthened, because the problem is, and you talk to any designer or architect or whatever, when they're doing the houses, and Katie can probably identify with this, is you sit at home or in your office on your computer with CAD open and you drop things down on your screen. You're not standing on the site saying, oh, what a feature white oak tree. I'm going to move my pool over here.
Right.
And, we have homeowners that are we worked with one, usually I request small changes, things that aren't a big cost. But we have some people that are really willing to work with us. We have one couple building a new house and they had to remove a lot of trees because it was a wooded lot without a house there.
Okay.
And they were willing to move their pool because I said, listen, your pool's going right on the nicest tree on the entire lot. And they hadn't even thought, okay, pick out this tree is the nicest in the middle of this woods. And so they, after some back and forth, moved their pool and were able to clean the tree. So that would be like a good example of that.
That is good.
Okay.
But it also
That's great.
takes a nice soft touch and finesse and people
Sure.
and people willing to embrace the community they're moving to, right? So the particular people I'm speaking about are moving here.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and so they're invested in the community and know what makes it special. So
That's a great story to tell, and I hope that when we start talking about the code, we'll use that example. That's a great.
yeah, that was a good one. I mean, we do the front walkways quite often, but that was a somebody going above and beyond what we would hope.
Yeah.
Or expect, I guess. We hope, but don't expect.
Gary, you had your hand up.
Susan, I don't understand. Why is the new code then less strict?
I mean,
understand, but why is it?
the oversight committee wrote it. You know, I mean, the plan, the mission for them was to make it less confusing. I guess the previous one was considered confusing. And I don't know. I mean, I attended some of the meetings, but I didn't attend all the meetings. So I don't know whether there are balances to that in other areas, or whether it's just more lenient altogether, or whether it reflects actual practice or what. But I mean, that's the examples we're talking about here are the very reason why we need to be involved in that, very much so, because I mean, our mission is to preserve and grow the canopy. And if we have a tree ordinance that doesn't support that, then that's a problem. So I would hope that our ordinance would ultimately support our goals.
Well, Liz, have you given them input into the fact that you think it's less strict?
Well, again, we haven't had any discussions about it. They've submitted it. The Law Oversight Committee has submitted it, and Parks and Shade Tree has submitted their responses. And otherwise, it's just individuals, weighing in. So we actually have not had any kind of discussion about it at all.
I'm just wondering, like, Liz, Liz's opinion would really matter in this case. And I'm just wondering if Liz, you've kind of gone to them and said, look, this is less strict.
You guys, I went to 2.5 years of meetings, sometimes up to 4 hours a day. So I certainly made my opinion known and offered several edits and suggestions, but it's a committee and there were several members and they had to come to a consensus. So this is the consensus they came to and what they submitted to the commissioners. And like I said, since it's gotten to the commissioners, like Susan said, it hasn't really been discussed too much.
Yeah, not at all. And plus the committee had a turnover of almost a complete turnover of members during the writing of the code.
Yeah.
So, I don't think there's any question it's going to have to go through not only discussions, but probably revisions. Just, it's a complex issue. But it's one that I hope will be very much involved with.
Well, do you know what the intended process is going to be? I mean, will it go before the planning commission at some point, or what?
I have not heard specifically that it would, but we would certainly have that option of we're going to be talking about it at the workshop on November 9th or whatever the November meeting is. Workshop, and that's a good idea to get their input on it as well. Yeah, it should. So, well, going beyond our overall mission and our name, and we should begin to talk about, and we probably won't finish that discussion today. We'll plant some seeds about what our, no pun intended, for our goals, priorities for next year, for the coming year. So starting now and through 2021. So I think I heard one of them that we would be sponsoring an Arbor Day celebration, right?
Yeah.
And that was certainly a goal from last year. Sounds like another one is going to be the Lake Avenue streetscape, but we can talk about that more if you like. And Andrea, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I had tried, I'm picking up on the stormwater management from the definition that Liz gave us. I had tried last year, I'd begun to investigate thinking about a program on rain barrels. And there are a couple of communities that had negotiated. It was upstate. I spoke to a couple of arborists, or I'm not even sure. I have to go back into my file about programs that were literally giving away rain barrels in some places that had programs where they were discounted for people that wanted to purchase them. And I think something like that, I'd like to see if I could get started on that. I'd be willing to work on something like that for us.
So-
If that's-
State just offered it. I mean, the state just provided rain barrels and compost compost containers at, I presume, a discount. I would think they would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were like half off what they normally are, and they were pretty decent looking too. I mean, they weren't like a grease barrel turned into a rain barrel. You know, they were very. I think they were like $50 maybe.
They
Yeah.
were.
Well,
So
with-
we
with,
should do a program. We should do a program that advertises that or gets that word out then. Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you could piggyback. I know the city sent out an email and
They did,
forwarded the press
okay.
release and posted it and all that, but
I've been gone. Okay, well, that's
I'm sure
great.
you could get the word out more.
Okay,
They do it
that's,
every year
I
around
invite
this
you to
time,
come
is that
over
the
and see
idea?
my rain barrel and compost container.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
right.
quite spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
okay. Excellent. I'm glad to hear that.
Do they do this every year, Liz,
Yeah,
around the late summer, fall?
I think so. I recall it happening a couple times before it, at least.
Yeah, I don't.
But it's probably subject to funding and the agreement with the company and, you know, year
Okay.
over year with who knows how that may change.
Right, yeah, okay. Well,
Well, I would be willing to look into that and see what we could do to really promote that.
You might be able to, I don't want to say this without saying, but you might be able to just search on the city's homepage and search for rain barrel, and the old post should come up if it was put on there.
But it was
Okay.
a DNRAC program, right?
Yes,
was
it was through DENREC, and I remember getting the email of their press release, and I'm not sure if it got posted. I don't want to say it 100% got posted on our website, but there's a chance it did.
I think I remember.
Okay, perfect, because I'm behind then, but
Yeah.
been on my list.
Yeah, I actually got an email,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it
Did
was
you?
direct. So I guess I'm on some list with DENRAC. I'm not sure how I got
Okay.
it. But that's the first time I had
City sent it
received
out.
it. It was, it was really worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
trying composting. Bucky's got the rain barrel.
I got both.
We've got a compost too.
I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, good.
Do we want to, speaking of things like that though, do we want to have any lecture programs, or was there talk about a follow up from the Talamy to do something else?
Well, one of the things, I guess it's getting a little late. We did have a pruning program that Liz did last year. It was not well attended, but there were a lot of people that had said they wanted to come and didn't. I don't know that we have time to do that, but certainly in the spring, Liz, you'd be willing to do that again, right? We did trees and we were talking about bushes. Which,
Yeah, it's not that I wouldn't be willing to do it. I'm just not sure what our
right. At this
organization
point, right.
would be around COVID.
Right. No, I understand.
You
but,
guys, you might, I don't know if anybody gets the Delaware Center for Horticulture emails, but they've been doing some virtual and limited space events. So it might be worth, like where they were hosting virtual talks for the community. And some were at a cost and some were free, I believe, but it might be worth looking into if we still have all the limitations on gatherings and stuff, if you wanted to do one of those in the spring or now. I mean, kind of short notice to do it now.
Same with,
I think,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think that the big draw was bushes, that was something that homeowners could do themselves as opposed to the trees. So I definitely, if possible in the spring, I'd really like to get that off the ground. So.
Go ahead, Katie, and then Elise.
Also, if you, Mount Cuba offers, offers pruning classes and offers a number of other online classes. I believe that you have to pay for all of them, but currently they're all virtual. Same with Longwood Gardens. But Longwoods tend to fill up like instantaneously. So, but Mount Cuba, you could check that out.
I was going to say, Susan, we've talked so much about rain gardens. I think that would be a great topic for a program.
Okay.
Maybe even add green, if you wanted to add green roofs, I don't know. But the rain gardens goes hand in hand with Talamy, and it's, full of, you want to have native plants in those rain gardens.
Right.
Yep.
And really
Yeah.
take in all the water and survive a drenching.
Yep. And less expensive than irrigation systems.
Yeah, exactly.
Bunky.
I'd just like to suggest, if we're going to be sort of a means by which of informing the public, and we're, until further notice, maintaining this sort of virtual presence, I think we could sort of, I don't know, if we're sort of thinking of topics, to sort of develop some kind of a curricula of these topics that we wouldn't have to produce, that we could basically say, if somebody's done like a YouTube video about something, or some kind of something that's already canned and put together, that we could basically just disseminate that and maybe do it on a kind of a regular routine basis and not have to organize a specific event for this thing. We could just get it out there. A lot of this stuff is, to some extent, reinventing the wheel. I don't think we need to do.
That's a good point. So we could be curators of information.
There's your word. There's your word.
So do we have a website, our own?
Well,
Yeah, we just send it out. I'm just saying, why can't we just dispense an email coming from whatever the name of this group's going to be, saying, this week, this month, these are interesting things, like in the spring, about pruning or something like that. But put this stuff out there routinely. It can be podcasts or videos or whatever materials, and then just get it out there. But I think we have the capacity, because we're reading this stuff, and I'm sure Liz could do that as well. Just we could pitch this stuff, just get it out there and say, here, check it out. It would be neutral. We wouldn't have it.
If we want to talk with the next meeting about what some of those could be, that would be great. If you want to pull something together. I'm speaking of the website. We do have the trees section of the city website, and one of the things I was going to ask is about, updating it because this came out of, I'm looking at Joan had taken minutes from the January meeting, the last meeting we had, and one of the things on there was a question from Terry about updating the website with what had actually been done on the commemorative tree program so far. So I think that would be good and I'll be glad to work with you, Liz or Chris or whoever does the content on the website and update that part. But that might be also a place where we can put, in addition to an email going out, where we can put links to some of this stuff.
However we want to be most effective, but I'm just thinking there's a lot of information out there, and instead of us like trying to develop something, all that kind of stuff, I think it's an easier way to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's a great idea. I would like to also think that back, at some point when we're back to having live meetings, that we could have another lecture like the Talmud, because it was inspirational, because of him largely, but also it was standing room only. And, I think that's great. I think it's great when we can reach a lot of people, and there can be, there's nothing like the live interactions of those kind of meetings. So, I look forward to the day when those come back.
Well, it wouldn't be terrible to at least start planning for one of those. Getting together a list of potential topics or speakers, right?
Yeah, totally. Yes.
Well,
everything but confirming the date and the actual person.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the people that we could potentially ask to speak would be Rick Dark. He's I believe he's a professor at the University of Delaware also, And he wrote Living Landscape with, I think it's Living Landscape.
Mhm.
The Living Landscape with Doug Talamay.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. That's a good suggestion. Okay. Well, we only have up to 15 more minutes, but I wanted to try to get a sense of then, first of all, what we would talk about next month, and secondly, what our likely priorities would be for the coming year. It sounds like Arbor Day is definitely there. It sounds like the Lake Avenue Streetscape is definitely there. I feel like making sure that the tree ordinance supports the city's mission,
Yes.
supports the CDP ought to be there. That we needed to have an active role in that. What else? We've talked about this curricula thing.
Well, I'm looking at Terry. I mean, how are we going to keep the commemorative tree program going?
Right.
I mean, do we do more marketing on that? Or, I mean, Terry can certainly give an update on what's been going on, but we're actually getting donations in without doing any active marketing.
Yeah,
which
that was my
which
that
has
was
been
my
terrific.
question. Yeah, because what I wanted to find out was, we have been getting donations, which is surprising because, and just talking to neighbors and people around town, we have been getting the donations. So I'm not really sure as far as the update on how much money is left in that fund and where is it projected to be used as far as the tree locations now.
Well, that's a question for
I'm
Liz.
expecting that it is because she's in charge of the trees.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Whatever.
Where are the funds for the tree program being used, and what? We talked about, like, for instance, the Lake Avenue Streetscape being next year, but there needs to be some sort of, we need to be able to go back to people and say, or to have an update on the website, say the funds were used for X number of trees in X location this year. They're going to
Yes. So if you look at the website under commemorative tree, there is the update from February 2020.
Oh, okay.
So I think it would be fair to post a similar yearly update. And if, our planting is April 2021, this is when we're going to plant the trees in this location. I think that would be appropriate.
And the 2020 update, the February update says what? That they were put on Rehoboth Avenue?
I'd have to look up exactly what it says, because it's a couple of
right
more. Yeah. From the city of Rehoboth Beach and MACT, thank you. We collected, it has the numbers, how many leaves, fund the planting of approximately 50 street trees, including many on Rehoboth Avenue. Some of the species planted included oak, redbud, and serviceberry. And then another thank you, please spread the word.
Huh.
Specifically,
okay, Terry.
I have my hand.
Yeah.
Specifically, what I was asking was, what is the plan going forward? How much money is left in the fund, and what is the plan for where those trees are going to be going? Because that's another question you can ask me.
I don't have all the money. Like, you guys know how the money works, is that whatever's taken in during the calendar year can be budgeted for the next year. So, like, the money, if you donate $500, it doesn't get put in my account that day. It's for the next fiscal year, basically, because we start our budgeting pretty much now to take place starting April 2021. But I think the answer is that it was planned for Lake Avenue Streetscape. And there are several other things in the CIP that were pushed or didn't get passed that would have included tree planting. So, we can wait for those to pass and get included, or kind of keep doing what we've been doing, is just keep it separate from projects the best we can. But in that case, I wouldn't be able to just say do a $50,000 project based. I'd have to only have whatever the donation was budgeted for, which is based on the year before.
So in general, should we just tell people that going forward, some of the money then would be used for the Lake Avenue Streetscape? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so I would just say our current tree planting is budgeted for like the Arbor Day location right there on the edge of the park and the Lake Avenue streetscape trees.
And I have a question for you. Why are the trees being planted there on the edge of the park?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
I'm wondering why the edge of that park was given priority in terms of other places that might need trees more than that location.
Edge of what park are you talking about?
You just referenced that there's trees that were for Arbor Day to be planted on the edge of the park. I'm assuming you're talking about the edge of the park on Girard Avenue. Station.
I guess it would, it would be on Third. Hold on, let me look at my map.
It's on Third, but it's.
Yeah, I guess it's Third and then it changes into Girard. Because Andrea and who else did we use? Who else came with us?
Sturgis.
We developed a list of several sites that we could do the scale of plan we wanted, as well as host a small volunteer event for the kids in the same area. And that was our winner.
And they were going to be very small, right? Aren't you using seedlings from your?
Yes, we were using seedlings, which is why we had the park behind us. Yes.
Yeah. So we were going to have the kids help plant little seedlings in the park. There's a couple of smaller bare spaces where we could have coordinated that. And then we were going to do a really nice project in a semicircle right there where the grassy area is. And eventually, hopefully one day, have like a nice little bench under it or something where people can sit, because there are no benches in that park in the woods. So.
Yep.
So that would still be the plan for Arbor Day next year, you think?
Yeah, I mean, because we were trying to do something big because it was like the 30th anniversary, right? Am I getting
right? Right.
Yeah, so we wanted to do something a little larger than normal. And if we don't want to do that this coming year, that's fine. We can certainly rethink the plan or do something different.
Well, I mean, we may want to, I guess we should probably talk about that more, so especially since we don't have to finalize anything, right now. We can continue talking about that. But I mean, Terry raises an excellent point in marketing the commemorative tree program, because even though donations have continued to come in, we're not really doing anything to promote it. So, what can we do to promote it? And
yeah, why don't we think about that for the next meeting? Just think about that in terms of some type of a marketing program, because there are people out there that want to contribute. And Elise, you were asking, Elise, didn't you mention the other day that there were a couple of people that you spoke to that said, hey, where's this money going? When I spoke with you the other day?
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with just getting an idea from some of the organizations that are in town that wanted to give, but then felt constrained by the list of species. I mean, they had very specific questions that I think they wanted an expanded list of species.
I'm not sure what list of species you're even talking about. There is no list for the donations.
What's on the website now about what's been planted, right?
I guess guess folks got thought that they were constrained by a list, and I don't know where. Yeah, I know we didn't have a list.
No, there's no list. It's site. I mean, that'd be so limiting. It's site specific. The species we try to use a variety. That's really important, and Katie can speak to that in design. But every site is different, so we would. Although I might have a list of 50 trees that I might look at that do well in the area, that doesn't mean by any means we're constrained to that.
And Liz, are those trees that are being planted, what is the watering situation on that? That's been a real question all along.
What was the watering? We had a contractor water them weekly with the bags.
And even the ones on the circle by Royal Farms, because they're looking really sad. Susan sent me a picture the other day. Have you looked at those lately?
The upright oaks?
Yes.
No, they look, I mean, I ride by them several times a day. They look good. Yeah, they're doing fine.
Susan, didn't you say, I think you said to me they looked a little bit sad or something.
Well, the leaves are, some of a lot of the leaves have brown edges. I don't know whether it's because they've gotten dry. I also couldn't tell. I have mixed feelings about those flat water thing versus the traditional kind, because I know they're supposed to collect the water and retain it, but
What do you? No, the donut ones, because they're upright trees and they're lower branched, you can't fit the towers. So that's why they, all the companies make the donut ones as well. I don't like them as much, but if we wanted to use the towers, I'd have to prune off a bunch of the bottom branches right away. So it's not really feasible.
What company is in charge of the watering?
Our contractor, Spazzato.
Oh, okay.
And they have been, I can tell you, the ones on Munson, the bags were all full. They were looking.
Yeah, I mean, the only bad thing about the bags is when you're in tree pits, like you have to rely 100% on watering because they block the ground, the mulch. So any rainwater that would go in there is pretty much running off of the bag into the sidewalk or the road. But it's really the only reliable way to do it, I think. So
those gator bags do work pretty darn well. We had I planted some trees this summer, and they worked very well. I thought you had to keep them filled up, but they do work pretty well.
Yeah. As long as at your house, as long as you can remember to fill them up once every week or so, if you don't get rain, then you're good. It's if you forget, then it's a problem.
Yeah. Oops.
And you look and you're like, God, when was the last time I filled up that bag?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're getting about to 11 here. So we want to maybe think about talking about the goals or finalizing our annual plan at the next meeting, and talk about this, the future and the marketing of the commemorative tree. Since it's been such a great first year, we want to make sure the second year is as strong as the first year.
Yeah.
But every time I walk by the tree at City Hall, I see more and more leaves, and I also see some taken down, which means that those are out being engraved for even more leaves. So it's a great feeling to walk by and see that every time.
Well, and guys, remember, this is the season that we would get for like the holidays. So a lot of people, this is kind of like the donation season, if you will. Like I received just in the last week 2 inquiries about like tree donations. So
great.
If we're gonna do something marketing, like a email or something like that, now, like probably in the next month would be the time.
Okay.
Leading up to the holidays.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to Chris Johnson too before the next meeting, and we'll talk about that.
Maybe we can have a more prominent announcement on the city website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like we could post on social media or send out email blasts or something like that. So if come back with ideas for the next meeting.
As we're wrapping it, one of the things that might work to be a reason to put out a press release would be not only the kind of reactivation of the committee, but the renaming. So, and I need to get approval on that from the mayor and commissioners, and we're going to be talking about committees, I guess, on the 16th. Do I have everyone's permission? I don't know if we need to vote on it or just get consensus to propose that it be called Trees and Green Infrastructure Committee?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that, particularly if we can then use the definition that Liz gave us, or something very close to that.
Use the definition as part of the mission statement, and then from there, if we get approval for that on the 16th, then from there, we can do, that itself generates publicity, that the renewed interest, renewed focus, and we can republicize the commemorative tree at that point.
And going back to the marketing of the tree committee, or the tree, the funding, I was thinking too, one of the things that we could really maybe appeal to people is, at this time when so many people are shut in, and, this is such a hard period for so many people all over, the country, and especially in our city here, maybe we could say that a tree is like a living example of putting faith in the future, that it'll be growing, it'll be lovely. And,
Perfect.
So say, something like that we could really orient it toward, let's plant trees so that we can look forward to that in the future,
and resilience.
And resilience. That's right.
That's really the key.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you. This is been a great first meeting. I appreciate all the input and wonderful. So I guess, need to get a motion to adjourn?
I'll move. Give me a time.
Second?
Second.
Okay.
Second. Third.
I will, we will reconvene next month.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Susan.
Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you, Susan.
Yes, good to see everybody.
Good to see everyone. Stay healthy.
Yeah.
You too. Bye.